Welcome in, everybody. What am I doing here? This is fun. Let's go right up here to Sad Times. My name is Kevin, and my guest, who you heard last week, is about to join us again, but I wanted to welcome you back in to Sad Times. For those of you who have never listened to Sad Times, here's a quick primer. Sad Times is a show in which each week we have a kind and generous guest come on and talk about times that they went through horrible trauma, that they were angry, sad, upset, that they dealt with these things that we all, unfortunately, from time to time have to deal with. And the goal is not to solve the problem. The goal is not to diagnose the problem, nor is it to fix it. It is to simply allow the person to tell their story so that you, listening at home or on the banana tree ranch, are able to feel hopefully less alone and maybe open up a little bit about some of the difficult times in your life. So that's Sad Times. You can find us at www.sadtimespodcast.com. Please take note that in this episode, we are going to be speaking about sexual abuse. So please take care while listening. And before we get back to our wonderful guest, which, by the way, if you haven't listened to part one with our guest Katie, please hit pause right now, go back and the previous episode and give that a listen up to where we are here. Let's do our sponsor this week here. Our sponsor this week is Healthcare Prices. That's Healthcare Prices. Hey, we're the reason that you have to make so many zeros because one bag of fucking saline is $72 million. That's Healthcare Prices. All right, cool. As always, please support our sponsors by using FAKE at checkout and try to get the cheapest saline possible. Okay, here we go. Back to part two with our friend and yours, Katie. Katie, when we last left you, first, how are you?
I'm fabulous.
Good. When we last left you, everything was going to shit.
Yeah, it was.
So let me give just a quick reminder. At this point, you are married, mother of three, and you and your husband have been married for a time. He has joined a motorcycle club. You have started a sewing business. And we'll pick it up there.
Yeah. So I was kind of doing my thing. The kids, we had started homeschooling, but because I'm not stupid, we did a public school at home program, which was wonderful.
Okay.
And in the midst of all of that, Tim decided to become really distant. And
what do you mean by really distant?
He legit would take off for weekends. There were cell phones. We had cell phones, but he would just disappear. And had no idea of when he was coming back, where he was. Is he dead on the highway? I don't know. And it got old.
I can imagine so.
Yeah, it got old. And so I kind of got sick of it. Took the kids and went to my parents' house, which really wasn't a stretch since, the kids were homeschooling. I was able to just, you could
go pack up and move the operation.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. We were about an hour and a half from my mom and dad. So, it was a drive, but it wasn't cross country or anything. And he was fine with it. He was like, go hang out with your parents, have a good time. But I had kind of decided, something's got to change. This isn't cool. I am not happy. You're not a husband to me. You're not a father to these kids. I could not say that and have it be received. So I really didn't know what to do other than to just leave. So I'd been gone for about a week, and my parents were aware that things weren't great. Unfortunately, he didn't really gel with being around my parents. His parents were very upper middle class, prim and proper. Everything had a place. My parents are this wonderful, chaotic melange of loud.
I love that description.
Like, we genuinely are the original loud family. I have to work very hard to not, like, I get excited when I talk, and as you can now see, I talk with my hands. That was not Tim's jam. Like, he did not vibe with that at all, and hated holidays with my family. Made it abundantly clear that he was being put upon. So my parents knew there was trouble in paradise, but I didn't know what else to do. Like, I was legit drowning. And while it wasn't their first choice, my parents, of course, welcomed us. And after about a week of no communication with him, he finally called, and I was like, I'm not coming back. And he was like, you're what? I said some things that need to change, and of course I'm trembling as I say this because, oh my God. I said, you need to get some help for your depression, because at the time he really was kind of all over the place. He would get manic, he'd get excited about something, and then everything sucked, the world sucked, we're all going to die, it's awful. And so now I know it is not depression, it is some sort of bipolar mix, but
or being a
Cubs
fan.
You need to get some help. You need to stop spending so much time at the clubhouse, or, you need to spend time at home.
And what was his response to that?
Fuck you, you don't tell me what to do. And I said, okay. Alrighty then. And he didn't ask me to come home. He did not express, I miss you, I miss the kids. He was just mad. How dare I assert myself? How dare I do this? Just get your ass home. And I was stuck. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to live in Winneconne with my 3 little children. I didn't know what
that
to
is
do.
your hometown, as we recall.
It is my hometown. Yeah. But I left at 17 to go to college for a reason. No diss to Winneconne. But it just no. And so after about 7 weeks, I came home with the kids.
And were you in communication with him during? I mean, I know it was about a week.
Bad.
Okay,
it was bad. He was so mad at me. There was no self-reflection on his part. There was no, gosh, what was my part in her being so upset? He was just pissed.
that kind of echoes from last week when you talked about I believe you said that you never won a fight, and there was never even anything, and it wasn't even about winning the fight. There was never anything from him like, I see your point, I understand where you're coming from. Okay.
No. And so the next year sucked. It sucked. I spent a lot of time groveling. How do I make this right? How do we work on this? I thought, oh, I know what'll fix this. Sex. I will be available to you 24/7, drop of a hat, no matter what. I'm here. I'm here for it. This will fix everything. And as we all know, didn't fix everything. In fact, just made me feel like garbage. And now this is my husband. Slight revelation. He was my first, consensual anyway. And so to me, that was huge. And, you can look at religion any way you want to. You can look at morality any way you want to, but it was huge to me.
Sure.
That Tim was the only man that I willingly had sex with. And that meant a lot. And had 3 children with this person. And above and beyond all of that, I loved him with my entire being. Like, I genuinely loved this person. Now I have a lot more perspective. But it was devastating to see this thing fall apart so drastically. And what really struck me was I've broken this by leaving. He's never going to forgive me. I will carry that shame forever. Like, it was all my fault for the infraction of leaving, for questioning his whatever. He was never going to forgive me. And he made that abundantly clear. At one point, he moved out. Thank God he continued to pay the bills, which was awesome. But it was pretty clear this was it. Like, we tried. He refused to go to counseling. Refused everything was on his terms. Like, it just, when we got to see him was on his terms. It just, everything was the Tim show.
So at this point, were you guys like officially separated, or it was just no,
there was no official anything. It was just, this sucks. And I had no idea where he was living. He wouldn't tell me. It was so strained and so tense and so yucky. Like, I just felt sick. And I lost a ton of weight. Like, I couldn't eat because I just felt like shit 24/7.
Do you carry your stress and worry in your stomach, or was this more of
mental? It was mental.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was all mental. I knew that this was not my fault, and yet I was the one who left because I had to, because I was going completely bananas. But that he just gaslit the whole thing. Like, this was you. you did this. You're such a doormat. It was all my fault.
Is it safe to say that, and correct me if I'm wrong, in the first episode when we spoke about some of the horrific trauma in your childhood, you talked a lot about how you really, from then on, had really, for a long time, had trouble with boundaries. And it sounds like to me that at this point, when you did move out and went to your parents, you were attempting to put up a boundary, a healthy boundary, and trying to say, this is what I need from you in order for me to come back. Yep. And instead of him respecting that boundary, it sounds like in your telling that he did the opposite, and that worked because of your issue with setting boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is not, I'm not blaming you to say that. I'm just saying that is probably the root of that. Is that fair to say?
Totally. Yeah, because it solidified in my head, this is what happens when you stick up for yourself, when you do something that's hard, but that is right, you get slapped in the face for it. And again, it was that cognitive dissonance. It was everything that I'm living with feels wrong. And yet when I make the change or, stand up for myself or say, this is what I need, I get told, you don't need that. That's crazy. That's not something I'm willing to do for you or whatever. And so then it's a self-fulfilling, cycle where it's like, if I stick up for myself, if I, do this bad thing happens. And so then it got worse.
Sorry. Okay. I just have to set the stage for everybody. One, you're hilarious. Two, right before you said, then it got worse, I looked over at Brent, and Brent had a pen in his mouth and was just kind of, producing the show as he does. And then you said, and then it got worse, and Brent just started laughing, and it looked like he had a cigar pen in his mouth, and it was hilarious. Anyway, I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's fabulous. So what happened next? You can call it God, you can whatever. But not to drag the story out too far, I was with a friend from church, and there was a little church that if you cleaned the church, they let you pick apples in the back of the church. So I was picking apples with my friend, and had a very strange thing happen to me. I walked into one of the church rooms and just started bawling. This overwhelming sadness hit me literally like a wave. And kind of like, where did that come from? I mean, yeah, I feel like shit most of the time, but what? So I told her about it, and she was like, okay, well, let's pray. And we did, and then finished picking our apples, and I needed to drop off some sewing. But the route that I needed to take took me through a little town called Mukwonago, which I very rarely drive through. But I drive through this town on my way to Oconomowoc, and I see his truck. And I'm like, okay. I needed to tell him something because he was supposed to come over for dinner. And so I whipped my van around and parked near where I thought he might be. And there was like a restaurant and a couple other shops. So I wasn't really sure where he was. So I looked in the restaurant, didn't see him. And right next door to the restaurant was the tattoo place. And big into tattoos, love them, great. So I thought, oh, he's probably getting a tattoo. So I walked in there. Well, he wasn't getting a tattoo, but somebody else was.
And who?
He was standing there next to her.
Her.
And I was the last human being he thought was going to walk through that door. The look on his face was beyond priceless. I was very taken aback. Told him what I needed to tell him. He introduced me to Sabrina, who is a lovely soul, wonderful woman. Love her to death. Highly recommend. She looked like she wanted to climb out of her skin. And now I know why.
Yeah.
But like where he was standing, it was pretty obvious they were friends. To what extent? I did not walk in on him having sex with her or anything like that, but you could tell there was a bond.
Mm-hmm.
And so I told him what I needed to tell him, walked out of the tattoo place, and threw up all over the street. Like I melted. Like I just melted. So I kind of knew from the church experience why I burst into tears, because something really horrifically shitty was about to happen. And drove to the lawyer in Elkhorn where I lived, and said, I ain't got shit for money, but I need your help. And he did. So I drew up divorce papers and served him.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Sorry to interrupt you. I want to commend you because, again, at the beginning of our first episode, you talked a lot about trouble with boundaries, and you walked in on a situation that was obviously awful for you, and you immediately, it sounds like, went and set a boundary. So I commend you for doing that, because goddamn is that not easy, especially after you just explained to us for the last number of minutes about the way it was received when you left before.
Yeah, it was not. But I'll be honest, it was shit no matter what I did. Like this, like divorce did not happen in, like, my parents are still married. Yeah. I mean, they may want to murder each other, but they are certainly not going to divorce each other. It's just like, you just did it.
And was that also something in the church? It was like that.
Oh God. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, no, you worked it out. But what, like, I was literally between Scylla and Charybdis. I was between shit and shit. Like, it was introduce divorce into my children's life. Like, this is a horrific situation I'm now about to put them through. We're getting divorced. I'm doing this. Or, flip side of that, I stay in this horrible relationship. I give the message to my children that this is what a daddy is. This is what a father is. This is how a father treats his children and treats his wife. So I'm fucked no matter what.
Yes. So between shit and shit, which I think is the exact way to say it. I wanted to ask you, that is like the most impossible, it seems to me, one of the most impossible decisions a parent would have to make.
Yeah.
And I think you really laid it out very well there about what the two situations were. How long did it take you? Not how long. How long were you? Were you pretty sure pretty quickly which direction you were going to go?
As soon as I met Sabrina, yeah, I was like, dude, all you had to do was tell me I don't pick you anymore. I don't want to be with you anymore. It would have been crushing, but living in that nebulous state of it, not knowing where you stand, not knowing how this person feels about you, this person that you swore to love and withhold, uphold, and till death do you part, you promise those things, and then when that person doesn't pick you anymore, it's awful. But what's worse is living in limbo.
Yeah.
Is not knowing, is he coming back around? Is he gonna like me again? And then, having these little people that rely on you for their everything. It was awful.
Yeah.
It was so awful. And, my family helped me get through it to the best they could. But I instantly had to get a job. And these kids had to go to school.
And how old were your kids?
Oh,
how old was your oldest?
Okay, so Liam was 9.
Wow. Okay.
Trinity was 7 or 8. And Aslan was like 5.
Wow.
Yeah, it was rough. And then you add in, Liam had a rough time. School was not great. And yeah, it was bad. Like I don't know how much of it was the home situation making his coping skills worse. But putting him into school, they just chucked him into a regular class because we didn't have a diagnosis at that time. We just knew something was different.
Yeah.
Like he hit all the milestones physically. Everything was great. But Liam was a little different. And, think Sheldon Cooper. Like, just really smart, but socially awkward.
Yeah.
And couldn't cope with change. So here I am throwing a great big bucket of change at him.
As a reminder for everybody from the first episode, Liam would go on to become diagnosed with Asperger's. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I get a job. The kids go to school. And the divorce proceeds along. So right now, a normal human being, or at least a more well-balanced, insightful, wise person would take time and reflect and mourn the loss of their marriage. I was not insightful. I did not mourn. I was going 90 miles an hour with blinders on. And all I knew was I need someone. I need a daddy for these kids. I want a partner who is going to be nice to me, who might actually think about my needs. And so I barreled along ahead into a new relationship. And like the ink on the divorce wasn't even dry. And my husband and I were off, or my fiance were off to Vegas to get married.
Whoa. Okay. Hold on a second. Okay. I just have
couple questions.
Basically, I just want to recap and make sure I heard that right. And not because all of a sudden we were in Las Vegas.
Ooh, that'd be good.
Yeah, wouldn't it? So the divorce proceeds. You, instead of taking a step back, you decide to start dating again. You meet someone. All of a sudden, you're engaged. You're in Las Vegas. Is that right?
Yep, that about sums it up.
Now, when you went to Vegas, did you do anything with marriage or just play the slots?
We got married.
Okay, there we go.
We got married.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, did not let any moss grow on that rock. We just rolled her along. It was so stupid. Like I did not give myself any time to process. Like I said, no time to mourn. I needed a daddy for these kids. And I knew Tim wasn't going to be it. Like he didn't give two shits about these kids when we were married. He certainly was not going to be there for them after the divorce.
Sure.
You know, if it didn't happen when it was convenient and they were in your house, if it becomes the slightest bit inconvenient, it's also not going to happen. So went on Yahoo Personals. And
that's how I met Brent.
Yeah. Good choice.
So yeah. No, I'm just kidding. That's not how I met Brent.
So what I did is I set up a profile, put a 1 hour radius away from my house.
Okay.
A 10-year age difference, like within that 10 years. So I was like 37, 38, something like that. And so really didn't want to be a cougar, but you know, beggars can't be choosers. So I threw it out there, and quite literally the first guy I met was Roger. And so I said, okay, this will work. Because the thought of dating, yuck, like, no, thank you. He seemed nice enough. He was clean. He smelled good. He had a job. And more to the point, had children.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, really hit all the boxes. He was very, you know, daddy oriented. He's 10 years older than me and lived exactly on the border of where my cutoff mileage was. So it was
wow. He's just right on the outer reaches.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to hold the Illinois thing against him.
Hey, whoa.
But he was born in Miami. So, you know,
Miami, Florida?
Yeah, he was born in Miami.
Hey, Brent, you be nice. Sorry, Brent, just
don't make me call you a fib.
No, yeah, whoa. For anybody who's listening at home, that means fucking Illinois bastard. That's what Wisconsin refers to people from Illinois. So
you only refer to as people from Wisconsin? No, because we don't care.
No, that's right. I don't know if anybody heard. Brent said we don't have a nickname for people from Wisconsin because we don't care.
That's
so you guys get married.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you move, you had a house, right? Didn't you get the house in the divorce?
Yeah. That was fabulous because we were so timely. We decided at the best possible time to sell a house. 2008.
Ooh, yeah.
Like, that was so great. Yeah, it was the worst. So, like, for those young people, 2008, the market took a complete shit and like everything
It was not good.
Related bottomed out and it just was a shit show. So, in the divorce, I basically rolled over. I shouldn't say rolled over because I didn't want anything. Like I said, keep your truck, keep your motorcycle, keep your 401k, keep your shit. I don't want it. Just leave me the house because the kids need a place to live. And he graciously granted me that. And so like truthfully, we had a very amicable divorce. Like once the line was drawn in the sand, like this is happening, we were civil. Like it just, okay, you okay, this is happening. And so I did get to keep the house. So once I married Roger, he lived in Illinois. I lived right across the border in Wisconsin. His place was much nicer than mine. Mine was 100-year-old farmhouse. I mean, it was a nice house. It had a roof.
It's a start.
And running water. So I sold my house and after the end of the sale, I got $75 out of my house.
Like that was the quote unquote profit from the house.
That was the profit. Yep. I got a whole $75.
Did you buy one Criterion Collection Blu-ray with that?
I think I bought a tank of gas, to be honest.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
All right. So, God, that's horrible.
Yeah, it did suck. But Roger's townhouse was nice. The kids settled in. Liam freaking loved his room. Like he, to this day, talks about that room. Like he loved his room. So everything is kind of swimmingly going along, so to speak. Kids are settling in. Tim gets the kids every other weekend. Roger and I are getting to know each other because we'd only known each other about 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah. What I did discover is that Roger snores like a friggin' freight train. And it became increasingly difficult to sleep.
Oh.
And so my nightly glass of wine began to turn into my nightly bottle of wine. And that helped me sleep.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you right there, Katie. We are going to take a break in this episode. Again, at great personal expense, I've hired the Hysteria 51 Orchestra. So they're going to play us into this break, and then we'll pick right back up where we left off, okay? All right, let's go with that. Take it away. Oh, Katie's dancing. Take it away, orchestra. There it goes. Oh, hell yeah. Ooh. I mean, I'm talking, Katie. I mean, $10,000. I was going to leave that to my not children, but no, now
I'm sure your not children won't miss it.
Yeah, for the Hysteria 51. Thank you, fellas, ladies, everyone. Really great. All right, everybody shuffle out. great. There's a lot of people in that orchestra. Okay, so when we left, before we had the lovely orchestra playing, you said that you went from a glass of wine a night to a bottle of wine a night, and at first it was because your new husband snored like a freight train, and that was a way that you could get to sleep.
Yeah. So that kind of continued on. And then, in the midst of all of this, Roger lost his job. And,
Jesus
that
Christ.
was not great.
No.
So, because at that point I was still able to keep sewing. It was a much longer haul to deliver my stuff, but still made it work. But I certainly was not paying the bills. So not great. And he feverishly was trying to find something else. And we were kind of down to our last nickels. We had borrowed some money from his mom.
Mm-hmm.
And then Freddie Mac swooped in and gave him a job. However, that meant to move to Virginia.
Which is, you're in Virginia right now as we're recording,
I am
correct?
in Virginia right now.
Okay.
So while it was an amazing blessing that, he was then gainfully employed.
Yes.
It meant losing my family or contact with my family on the regular. My church group, my business, my everything. And, it was exciting because I had never lived outside of, just over the border of Wisconsin. And so it was exciting, but also terrifying. And so they packed us up lock, stock, and barrel, moved us here to Virginia. The only caveat was, in the midst of all this, Roger's 95-year-old mom was going to move in with us. Someone I'd never met.
Okay, so you'd never met his mother. I mean, you
Nope.
did say that you'd only known each other for about 6 months, so I guess it makes sense that you wouldn't have met her yet, but you're also learning that she's going to move in with you.
Yeah.
As you're moving across the country.
Yep, that was the stipulation because unfortunately she'd kind of burnt most of the bridges with other family members and nobody else wanted her. She, God bless her soul, was a scooch difficult. And so in the midst of all of this, move across country, start life anew with this new person, my kids in tow. Now there's this person in my house. I had zero time to process any of it. I didn't process the divorce. I didn't process the remarriage. I didn't process any of this. And all of the demons, all of everything just rose up and took over. I started drinking very heavily.
And I think it is worth reiterating really fast here. Again, the brief time frame and the amount of change that was thrown at you.
Yeah.
So you lost your husband, you married a new one, you lost your house, you sold it and made a profit of $75. You bought a Blu-ray of Criterion. I'm just kidding. You moved across the country and then you lost regular contact with your family in Wisconsin, with your church, and so all of your support group. Well, yeah,
Gone.
technology allows us to be able to speak with them, but they're gone. And so all of that stuff, along with everything else that you have told us that you have withstood during your life, it's just so much at once. And I just wanted to really point that out, how arduous that must have been.
Yeah, it was a lot. But people flippantly talk about the boiled frog theory. While it has been debunked, you can't boil a frog. The theory,
You heard it here first.
Yeah, right. Breaking news. The idea behind it is very, very true.
Mm-hmm.
As you are gradually exposed to things, they do normalize. They do become okay in gradually increasing doses of what wouldn't have been okay if somebody smacked you with it initially. But once you get so far down that rabbit hole, it's okay. You just keep swimming. You just keep swimming. And I did not realize how overwhelmed and just out of my depth. Didn't know who I was. Didn't know, I was divorced. How the hell did that happen?
Right.
It just was so, but there was no time for those kind of moments of realization, because it was this whirlwind of gotta get a job, gotta get the kids to school, gotta this, gotta that, it was
gotta
just
survive, gotta make sure my kids are surviving.
Yeah, you feel like you're legit out in the ocean treading water, and if you stop moving, you're done. You've drowned. And honest to God, you really can only tread water for so long before you're just done. And that's what happened to me. I took a job.
So I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
How long? Your mother-in-law is living with you, and you said she was a scotch difficult, I believe is how you said it.
Yeah, she was a little tough.
So you guys are settling in, and you took a job. Okay, sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to kind of bring it all in.
No. So I took this job, and she very shortly thereafter died, which was indeed sad, but she was 95. So we kind of give it that. So I took a job.
Okay.
And gonna kind of gloss through some of it because it could go on for a long time, but there was an inappropriate relationship at this job. It started out very much like other inappropriate relationships at work. My boss was inappropriate, and I did not have boundaries. And because this was my boss, it had to be okay, even though I knew it wasn't. And that inappropriate relationship took a very nasty turn, let's just say. Raj found out about it and was most displeased, as one would be. I was disgusted with myself for not being a better person. Like, what the fuck? Like, but it legit just like he was a comforting soul. He listened to me. He was this, that, and the other thing. And whatever it was wrong. And I 1000% own that. And so then that job ended. So you pile on top of child sexual trauma, eating disorder, divorce, disassociation with family and friends, feeling completely isolated, trying to do my best for my children, drinking far too much, and now there's adultery. So I was feeling like a super great person. I legit was not in a good place. So I took another job. And
can I ask a quick question? How soon into being at Virginia did you leave that job to take another job?
I worked there for about a year and a half.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So this was okay. So the second job that I took, the kids were older. So like Liam and Trinity were in high school.
Okay.
And this one had all the trappings of, wow, this is really good. It was a nonprofit wing of a company. What we were supposed to do was be a community resource center for members of our community to get computer skills. Where I live in Virginia is predominantly Hispanic. So there's a lot of, we wanted to be here to help people get jobs and work on their resumes and all that kind of do-gooder stuff. And the owner of the company was a Christian and a stand-up guy. And so I was like, this is good. This is really good. My life is completely falling apart.
And you're still drinking a lot.
Oh God, yeah. Mm-hmm. Every night. And like I had said at one point, I was drinking about 2 bottles, probably a little more a day, and train for a marathon.
It's just fucking insane.
I know. To this day, I still
I have no idea how you did that.
Yeah, don't recommend.
Yeah.
Do not recommend. But yeah, drink a lot. So I feel like garbage, but this is going to be a great company. We're going to do good. And then you kind of peel behind the mask, and the owner of the company decided to start groping me inappropriately. Now you're thinking, your average person would know that you don't do that. But I swear to God, predators can smell prey or someone without boundaries or someone, they can smell you a mile away. I just what in the, but, so he would do incredibly inappropriate things. Like, I'm sitting in the office and he would instant message me, and ask me to lean farther forward,
What?
to show him body parts. And it devolved to watching him masturbate.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so, it's like, what the fuck do you do with that? What a really wise person would have done is to report that asshole to the authorities and take the video that's on your computer to authorities. What I did was not that. I decided to burn my life down. The reason that I didn't do that was because people relied on this man for their livelihood. If I took him down, I was taking down 40 or 50 people and their livelihood. My children worked at this company part-time. So that was their job. If I had burnt this to the ground, it would have been on my head.
So I want to say something too. A moment ago, you said, "Oh, what would a normal person do?" I don't know if normal was the word. They would go to the authorities. I just want to step in and say, you should not. Not should not. There is no reason to beat yourself up over this. Is kind of what I wanted to say. But you did.
Yeah. No, I realize that now. God, hindsight is a bitch, because it's like you look back on this and you're like, what the fuck are you doing? What? But what I did was I would walk home at lunch, get wasted, go back to work, trying to get fired. Because if I got fired, because I couldn't quit, like I couldn't quit. So I needed to throw a hand grenade at my life. And I did. My family was pretty disgusted with me at this point. Like, you need to quit drinking. And I was like, you need to not tell me what to do.
Do you mean your husband, or were your kids telling you that too?
Yeah, my kids were just kind of, they were not a huge fan of Roger, for various reasons, but they didn't know what to do. And so in 2015, when I was unceremoniously fired from this job, I was ordered to go to rehab. And I did. So I went to rehab.
Actually, so Katie, I'm going to stop you there.
Yeah.
And we're going to go ahead and wrap up for this week. And then we're going to finish your story in a third episode. And before we wrap up, thank you again. This is another part of your life that, again, is full of difficulties, adversities, and I really appreciate you coming on and the strength that you're showing by sharing this. It's really wonderful. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we will see you next week. And then for everybody else, as I always try to say, please remember that there's always room for kindness and grace, even to yourself. There's always room for kindness and grace. And we will see you next time on Sad Times.
You've been listening to A Fourth Hand Joint.